Hello, everybody, and guess what? You already know what time it is. It is time for another fabulous episode of the Her Voice Shines podcast. As always, I am your beautiful host, Shanasia Washington, based in the beautiful city of Houston, Texas. And like no other, we have a fabulous lady here for you that's going to give us some great information. And I'm always a little bit extra when I already know the guest because I've had the pleasure of working with this lady on a different project about a year ago, and I guarantee she's a powerhouse. So it's not about me, it's about them. So it's time to bring this fabulous lady to the stage so she can tell us her name, where she's streaming from, and waste no time. She's going to jump right into this story. And here she is.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm coming to you from beautiful New Zealand and the other side of the world, so technically coming from the future. And I am the Fempreneur Pathfinder. I am all about making women break through limiting beliefs and really own who they are. I'm a feminine embodiment coach, I'm an international speaker and a best selling author. And I believe that everybody has a story that is worth telling, and really by owning your voice, which the podcast is all about, it gives you a permission to not only put a line in the sand to move on with your life and your business and who you are and how you show up. It gives others permission for you to go and be your biggest, best, shiniest self without being apologetic. And one of the favorite titles I gave myself is Becoming an Unapologetic Wild Woman, because it has a little connotation of really not so much caring what everybody thinks of us, because quite often it's in our head and we play small as a result of it. And we're here to really roar and rumble and be who we are, glorious, colorful, loud, and actually being heard and not just seen. And this is what lights me up. And I love nothing more than a woman who digs in to go, ooh, I am showing up as myself and I'm doing business my way. I bring out everything that I've got, and it gives you power. So, one of the things I'd love you to think of when you think of your voice is, where have you perhaps held yourself back a little bit? Take a moment to really reflect on that, because we're always in go, go, go mode. And my story has been one of learning that the hard way, that when you're constantly doing stuff, your health and your mental state takes a back seat. And that really crushed me. I've had a 25-year career in corporate, and I was in this structure where I forgot who I was as a woman. I put on the power suit, put on the mask, and every morning when I went to work, I pretended to be somebody else, because the hustling and the grinding and the chasing projects and the getting up the career ladder, that eroded my health to the point where I had a complete breakdown and a mental breakdown at that as well. My body was shutting down. And I literally had adrenal fatigue. I got depressed. I had anxiety. And the saddest part in that, me not listening to my body, was that I miscarried 5 pregnancies. That was a hard journey for me to go through. And one thing I learned is, by being still and not doing all the time, you're actually honoring who you are, not just as a woman, but as that being that came here to do bigger things, to be still, to listen to God and to spirit, and to settle in with, actually, I am allowed to go all out. I am allowed to be outspoken of what I want, what I desire. So if you go back to when you were a little wild child like me, and I'm sure everyone has heard, oh, be quiet and be nice and smile, when really you want to do something completely different. How many of those stories actually are your own? And how many of those stories are the ones that you have taken from your field, maybe from your family, your community? How many of those stories are really yours? And that for me was a big journey, because I realized that I have entered a career that I actually didn't like. And it gave me opportunities, there was abundance, there were some good times. But at 45, a few years ago, I literally had a breakdown, stopped everything, left my job to find myself, to who I was. When you park the VIP president titles and you are away from the office, who was I? So, do you know who you are when you take that title away? So, I love the conversations when women show up as the woman first and then as the executive or the business owner second. Because magic happens when we put our armor down and we actually go, this is me, I'm vulnerable. I don't have all of my things together. Yes, we show up on podcasts, we show up on social media and in events, but that's always the together version of us. When women really come and have honest conversations about, you know what? Yeah, I run a business, but I have my issues with the relationship and I've got kids, aging parents, could be any number of things, health reasons. It's okay to be honest and be vulnerable because in this day and age of media and now AI and everything is artificial and filtered, that honesty is what really speaks to people that listen to you. They don't want to see the perfect version all the time. So I really sat with that throughout my rediscovery of who I was. And my voice, it was loud. It wasn't meant to be parked in the corner. And I celebrated my 50th birthday 2 weeks ago. And I realized, you know what? My next decade, which everyone tells you, quiet down and take a back seat and, the kids are growing up. No, I decided my next decade is going to be unapologetic. And now it's like, oh, I'm just getting started and I'm going to wear pink and be all bright and shiny. But I want to have younger women know that they can have a different path and that we are here to really hold them in that one. And your voice needs to be heard. So when someone puts you down or puts you in a corner, just let it sit for a bit and go, is that really addressed to myself or am I taking on everyone else's noise? And one of my most transformative things I started doing when I had my breakdown is every morning when I wake up, I don't do anything. I don't take my phone straight away. I don't do stuff. I don't read the paper. I go outside and I'm fortunate I have a spa pool. I sit there before the sun rises and I'm just with myself. I actually honor that moment in time where I go, it's just me and my soul and spirit. And I see what's alive. How do I feel in this body, in this world, in my business, in my relationships? And what do I really want to attract? And that seemed very decadent, but it's something I would like you to try when you have a chance to see what is there, what are you listening to when it's just you and your own voice.
Oh my gosh, I love it. There were a lot of heavy things in that first segment that you said, and probably in your story, you've told it so many times. But I think sometimes when people hear it, and they haven't heard it before, they don't have the introduction to Tina. There are definitely antennas that raise, right? Because I've known partially about your story a little bit in our last kind of path with each other. But one of the things you mentioned, well, two things that you mentioned, I want to touch on. The first thing you said is that you miscarried 5 times. Super vulnerability. So
Yeah.
I honor you in this space for that, for
Thank
sharing that.
you.
I honor you and give you roses in this space. That's what this platform is for. So number one, that mental toll, that's a lot. I want you to talk a little bit about that. And the second part of that, which you can tie into this, you talked about this journey of finding yourself. What is that process? Because we hear that, and I think some people hear that and it's almost numbing because it's like kind of a cliche thing. I want you to talk about a little bit about those mental turns you had to take with so much heaviness, and then weave that into this journey of finding yourself and what that really meant.
Thank you. The journey of me owning the very sad and grieving part of losing pregnancies was where my whole trajectory of speaking about it and I guess dealing with the anger around that topic was a big one because I found that society looks at that, if they even know about it. I mean, the terminology miscarriage itself enraged me at the time. Oh, you lost your baby. I said, I haven't lost my baby. I lose my keys. I misplace my phone. But the actual truth of it was, for me, like, my baby died. It died inside of me before anyone even knew it existed. And I think therein lies, especially with miscarriage, the whole thing of us being set up to keep it quiet. It gets sanitized out of society. No one was talking about it. And I was in a high-flying 6-figure job trying to hold it together. And obviously, you don't tell someone when you're pregnant. And even the medical profession and most of the people around us tell us, don't tell anyone you're pregnant until you're over that 12-week period, like some magical hump in the road. And by that, we set ourselves up to internalize all that pain. And I did that. I just carried on because I had a job and I had all sorts of things I was doing all the time. So I thought, well, it wasn't meant to be, and carried on and tried again. So I denied myself the space to actually grieve and even consider that that was trauma that my body had gone through. And that for me was a turning point when I realized it's trauma, because we associate the big things with the word trauma. But our bodies as women, especially when it comes to our reproductive organs, it is trauma. And by accepting that, I then opened, the question was always, why does this keep happening so many times? What have I done wrong? I was in a mentality of everything was happening to me. And the hardest part and the turning point came when I realized that my lifestyle, the constant stress, the hustle, the grind, the never taking a vacation, the never stopping, my body was full of cortisol, and that's a stress hormone. And my body didn't deem it safe to carry a pregnancy to full term. That for me was a hard pill to swallow, that I possibly contributed to the trajectory. And because busyness, we wear it like a badge of honor. So that was hard. And it wasn't a pretty process to face that, because out of the sudden, me looking at all of the outside world and what has been done to me, I was part of a willing participant. And it came down to me deep down not feeling good enough. That's why I wanted to prove myself even harder, get higher, get more of a pay package, get all of the things we feel like we have to be successful. So I had to redefine all of that. And the raw honesty that was at the bottom of all of that was some of the things I didn't want to face. And I've touched on that in my book. There was childhood conditioning. There was me thinking that I'm not worthy. And hence everything that was handed to me in that career, I couldn't say no to it. And then you internalize that. So you constantly, but if I work longer, and if I just, do the overtime, take on another project, go after another thing, it's outside forces and it's coming within. And the finding yourself part, I know it's a cliche, it's actually a walk in the mud, as I call it. It is you facing your own shadow and finding yourself. It's not like going on a retreat and spent 2 weeks in Bali and meditating. That's the cliche we all have in mind when we go finding yourself. The process of doing that means that you go and be very still and very honest with yourself, and you turn the mirror and you face all the things you do not want to look at. Where have you shown up not honoring yourself? Where have you hurt other people in that process? Where have you lashed out? So it's not a glorious shining path to follow. It's actually facing everything that you've hidden in your subconscious with yourself. And that requires stillness, real inside reflection. I hope that makes sense. We call it almost shadow work, looking in the dark spots we don't want to go. Mm-hmm. And that's where the truth comes up. That's where the honesty, the raw stuff comes up.
That stillness is so powerful. I think my biggest transformation came during the pandemic because I had the opportunity to be still, right? Not by choice, really, but really by divine design, because that was the place that I knew that made the most transformation. So that stillness is powerful, Tina. I think that people have to understand it, because sometimes when you're doing all of the things, that still place is hard to get to. Like sometimes you don't even know that it can exist because you're so busy trying to stay afloat. So thank you
Yeah.
for saying that. But when I was researching, I was looking at your intake information. You said something that stood out. You said that taking this journey from to-do list to ta-da list, like ta-da, I did it,
Yeah.
right? It's tricky for women. It's
It
tricky
is.
because of all the competing stuff. You said the aging parents, and chasing the career, and getting into this place of this six-figure job and this high profile job. Sometimes those things that you really really want stay on the to-do list. So let's
Yeah.
talk about and help someone who needs to hear this, to help them get some of those things off of to do to ta-da.
You have to own your desire. I would like you to go, and this is an honesty thing. We are programmed to put ourselves second and to look after everybody else first. And I'm a recovering people pleaser, but by actually looking at it from what you really want, think of the airline thing. You put the oxygen mask on yourself. We cannot serve from an empty cup. And we are so conditioned as women to nurture everybody else. And I work a lot with female and masculine energy when it and how that shows up in the body and in our daily lives. And mother, that label and what society perceives to be the nurturer, the person that looks after everything, that is actually not a feminine energy. Motherhood is a masculine energy. And that sounds strange, but masculine energy means you constantly doing it, go, 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 go. And you touched on something with the pandemic where we were forced to be still. So many have reconsidered why they were even doing things, because, like you said, it wasn't by choice. And a yoga class on a Wednesday night in between six other things, that's not going to be the stillness you need. And quite often, when people finally do take a vacation, often the body is still and goes into into shock almost, and that's when we get sick. I I've seen this in my family with my father, who had his own business. It was modeled to me that, oh, you carve out those 2 weeks and then you work even harder because you're making up for lost time. And he used to get the flu or a tummy upset every time he went on holiday. It's because the body goes, oh, what's happening? I'm still. I'm not doing anything. And if we stay in that long enough and actually make it a daily habit to just block everything out, eventually, like I say, spirit comes through and we hear our own voice in between the noise. And that is where we can really look at stillness as a gift. And it's not selfish. And I think this is the label we always say, oh, the me time. We feel like, oh, but I should be doing this and I should be doing that. I can't just possibly ignore the laundry and read a book or have coffee with a friend or just sit in the sun, stand bare feet on the beach. We look at this as luxury items, and we often deny ourselves at the expense of everyone else's happiness. So you got to have to be selfish. Put yourself first. Put yourself on your own throne and crown yourself as worthy of being the queen in your own life and going, I deserve to do this. And it's not having to be justified. And people may look at you guys, oh, I come from a scarcity mindset from 2 generations of post-war Germany. That's where I grew up. So my grandmother, I've never ever seen her sit down and flip through a magazine or have a cup of coffee in the sun. Never. Because she felt like she was being judged on how good a housewife she was and how good of a homekeeper. So there's all these labels that we have that prevent us from, you know what, I'm tooting my own horn. And I think by actually announcing that and practicing that, that is somewhere where you can start. Look at your weekly calendar. Do you actually have something in your calendar where you go, I'm just having me time? Schedule it in, whether that means walking or going to the gym or just sitting in the sun Active relaxation can be quite as potent as just lying in the grass, but you need to be prepared to stake your ground, hold your ground. And that's where the voice comes in. Don't just ask it, hey, would it possibly be okay if I could, you know, be out for an hour? Can you look after the kids or whatever it may be? Say it from a place of conviction to go, I need you to do something for me today. Can you please pick up the kids? I'm going to be out of reach for an hour, period. And your voice, the way you actually put that out there, has an endpoint. It's not an open-ended question when your voice goes up. Practice that. How do you come across when you're asking something for yourself? Do you ask for your permission from somebody or for yourself? Or do you make a statement? And that is something you can practice. Start with something little, but make it a habit of, what do I have to say no to today so I can say yes to myself? And that's a powerful transition.
Oh, it definitely is. And I think really where the goal is that we have to remember that, our childhood conditionings, the learning, the cultivating, it's funny how it shows up like later in life and you're trying to figure out like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's conditioning. So you have to do this period of learning and unlearning. And that's that's where it gets like a little bit tough because, you mentioned you saying that your grandmother, you never saw her do these things
Yeah.
that I'm stepping away from that. And like, even with some of my strides and, keep knocking it, it's what I know. I know that to be a part of the work ethic. So sometimes I do have to massage around, is this really a priority? Or are you just so fixated on getting everything checked on the task list that you haven't thought about things that you can navigate and move around to put yourself first, like those personal needs a little bit ahead of all
Yeah.
of these checkbox stuff. So thank you for that. You also seen lots of talk of this alpha female kind of persona kind of going to the background, and people are leaning more into this networking thing. There's a bigger call for vulnerability and collaboration. This is a perfect example of this happening live and in color here, like coming back and speaking to someone that I talked to almost a year ago. But just talk to me about that importance of networking in general, but also to that female networking, as we, as a group, try to move to visibility and really connection.
Yeah, I love that topic because the alpha female is dead. You heard it here first. It's a paradigm we hold on to where we were pinned to compete against one another instead of that sisterhood. We used to gather in circles. I hold them in my space in person. I hold them online. And there's a subtle energy change that I've noticed where, I don't know, it's almost dividing people a little bit when you have a really good networking group and someone comes in with this, oh, what's in it for me energy? And you can spot them because you've been in this really softer energy where you can show up and just be yourself. And we often do them outside of working hours. So you're not coming up with the perfect jacket, even though it's a business networking technically. We get to know each other's lives and it becomes a person, not a title or a LinkedIn profile, because that's the perfection stuff. The first woman that goes, okay, I need to tell you guys something. I am in my early 50s and I get hot flashes in the office and I find myself completely thrown and feeling embarrassed, like I am that 21-year-old apprentice, and we're taking that energy on. I mean, we established women at that age, and this is my age, I'm 50. But since when have we gone back to almost going back down to the beginning mindset of our career and worry about what our male colleagues in the office think of us having a hot flash? It's part of who we are. And those women, out of the sudden, someone said that. Everyone goes, oh yeah, I have a fan, and sometimes I feel like I'm trying to do this or that, or trying to turn the aircon up, but I'm feeling really conscious about it. And if I have a big presentation, what if it happens when I'm talking to a group of people, and I'm up the front in the boardroom with the projector and all the sweat's running down me. And everyone goes, oh, yeah. Why are we pretending it's not happening? So it's that vulnerable part. And I often, and I have two other women that I hold these spaces with, but we go first and we go, okay, I'm such and such. And we're not going, I'm the VP of marketing, la, la, la. We go, my name's Tina, and I'm a mother, and I'm a sister. So we actually make it a human experience rather than a business networking, because that elbowing is outdated and it repels us. It's like that salesy thing when someone tries to shove something down your throat when you go, oh, yeah, no. And being soft, that's a feminine trait. We don't have to be. And I say this from again a closed loop in the journey, because I'm also teaching karate. I'm a black belt in a martial art that is male dominated. I worked in male dominated industries, but it doesn't mean I can't be female at the same time. So for me, the change happened when we actually allow ourselves to be women. We care about people. We love listening to other people's things. We worry and we give cuddles and show up softly. We do it with our families. We can be honest in business because that's what makes us human. And I can spot these places where you go, a woman goes in, I'm da-di-da-di-da. They're selling something, they're selling themselves. And we're done with those times. So the alpha female is dead.
I love it. And that lean into that human centered feel, that's where people are gravitating to. Because also to tying back to what we said in the beginning of the interview, when we talk about this rise of AI, this rise of social media, where everything is just so artificial and being pumped out so quickly, that human touch and that human connectivity is really what many women who have actually hit that wall, that's what they're craving. Because that's what I needed in a time where I was like, okay, my back is against the wall. I have to find someone who knows this walk and someone who is saying, okay, I'm going to live a certain type of way. And I gravitate to your way of life that is not necessarily close to me right now. So that's really good. We cannot leave here, Tina, without you talking about the book, telling people about the book, of course, where they can get the book, and then also too, just generally where they can connect with you.
Thank you for that. My book is called Corporate Rewilding, and it's a wild woman's guide to reclaim your feminine power. And it touches on not just the story that is my own, but it also paves the path on how you can look at all of elements of your life, not just your career, and how you can come back to wholeness. It's a journey back to self. And it is written in a way where it's going to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. But then change is uncomfortable, and changing our mindset is a journey. And I'll love to take you on that journey. It is on Amazon, and I'm sure the link will be available. And if you want to find me on LinkedIn, it's Tina K. Kailea, or on Instagram at _fempreneur, and or the website www.fempreneurpathfinder.com. So I'd love to hear what you think of rewilding in a corporate space, and share. If you read the book, let me know what the takeaways are, and what have you rewilded in your life? Where have you shown up fully?
I love it. I definitely have to tap into that book. I'm pretty sure we can have further discussion over it. Because we working in kind of two different spaces, like with the corporate side and just women that are building businesses. There's so many things that still need to be had on a regular basis so that we can shift change. I want to do this segment, Tina, our final thoughts. I want you to give these viewers your final thoughts. So if they were not to see anything else in this interview, what is it that you want them to know about the essence of Tina? Or just as we wrap up this interview into a good place as final takeaway thoughts?
I would like to invite you to sign your own permission slip to show up unapologetic. And if you're scared, I want you to write something down. Fear is where the growth is. If something feels uncomfortable, then that's where you need to go, because that's where your next level is hiding. And that's the key that I live by. And that's where I have had my biggest transformation, to actually go there.
Tina, it's been absolutely amazing. I knew it would be. I was ready to have this interview because, like I said, I know how it was the first time. So I want to thank you again and honor you in this space for joining us here at the Her Voice Shines podcast. You guys know that I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. And always remember to let your voice shine. Until next time, we are out.
Thank you so much.